Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Mix 1041. We're on MixTV.tv. I'm joined by the governor of the state of Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee. Governor, good morning. How are you?
How you doing, Steve? I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. Glad to be back with you again.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on, sir. And I do want to begin, though, talking about these winter storms that we've just experienced. You there, obviously, in the Nashville area, Middle Tennessee, but really all across the state. And the Tennessee Department of Health reports today that we had 36 deaths through this storm.
Yeah, what a difficult week it was for so many Tennesseans. And from the minute it started, I was on the phone with our Department of Transportation folks, our TEMA, emergency management folks. They were working around the clock to make sure that we were clearing roads and providing for the people as much as we could. But it was a tough storm. It was incredibly cold, some record cold temperatures, and one right on top of the other, and certainly tragic whenever there is loss of life. And the people of Tennessee came together and served one another. But it's tough news to hear about what occurred across the state.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, I do want to talk about also, and we're obviously going to jump around here a little bit in the time that we have. We're joined by Governor Bill Lee, live from Nashville, obviously. I want to talk about, just give us an update on the Education Freedom Scholarships, how that's going, especially now that the legislative session is in progress.
Yeah, education has been a cornerstone of our administration. I would call it that. Every year since I've been here, we have worked really hard to make proposals, provide funding to continuously improve the environment for our kids to learn in this state. The future of Tennessee depends on the next generation, and the next generation is profoundly impacted by the quality of the education they have. And so whether it's reworking the funding formula for our public school system a couple years ago for the first time in 30 years, which was desperately needed, broad bipartisan support on that. Historic funding for public schools. We put $1 billion in the budget with that funding formula and continue to do that. Teacher pay raises, historic. What we're doing with our Education Freedom Scholarship is providing one more level of opportunity for improvement for our education system. We have a strong belief, I have a strong belief, that parents are the best decider for where their children go to school and what they learn. And the Education Freedom Scholarship Act is going to give parents one more option, one more choice, one more ability to make that decision for what's best for their kid. And we can add to the current, movement forward that we have created in our education system in the state, and be even better as a result of it. So I'm very encouraged. We're working, the language of the bill is out there. There's a framework that's been put out. The General Assembly has been great partners on this and will continue to be, to get a piece of legislation that works for Tennessee and Tennessee families. And it's very important, in my view, that we move forward with this.
We're joined by the governor of the volunteer state, Bill Lee. Obviously, there are people in public school systems. There are people who are concerned about losing funding to these scholarships, these Education Freedom Scholarships. What do you say to them, Governor?
Well, the most important thing is that there's a governor in this state and a General Assembly in this state that understands and believes strongly in our public school system. And that's why we've made historic financial investments. It's why we've made structural changes to funding. It's why we have created a pathway for teachers. It's why we have a a target, and we are on path to be a top 10 teacher pay state in the country by the time I get out of here, because the vast majority of our kids are going to be educated in the public school system. And that will be true before and after the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. There is there's a sense that you have to choose either or that adding an option for a parent takes away from our existing public school system. There's nothing further than the truth, from the truth in that. We need this to be accretive. We need it to be additive. We need to have the best public school systems in the country, and a commitment to those, which we will, and you'll see in our budget this year. We'll be putting significantly more funding toward our public school system than we are toward the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. But at the end of the day, I fundamentally believe nobody knows best what their kid needs better than the parent. No one knows but the parent what is right for that child. Every child is different. Every child's needs are different. There are different opportunities for educating a kid, and we need to give parents the greatest array of choices that we can possibly give them for those kids to survive. At the end of the day, my commitment is to the children and the parents of this state to provide them an environment for the best education. And that includes public, private, homeschool. That's the approach that we want to take.
We're joined by the governor of Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee, live from the state capitol this morning. So, Governor, you're going to give your State of the State address, I believe, in early February. It's either the 5th or the 6th, one of those days. Hopefully,
it's the 5th. It'll be Monday night, the 5th. You're right. It's my 6th State of the State. I'm excited about the opportunity to talk a little bit about where our great state is, and we're in a very strong and very enviable position, frankly. There's a lot of states that wish they had the fiscal stability. We have a General Assembly that is very, very committed to fiscal responsibility, right? And I talk about that in the State of the State, and will in our State of the State, how we have to be committed to a good savings account, how we have to be committed to fiscal responsibility, low taxes, a low debt structure in our state. Those are all things that in business you're committed to, and when you're committed to that in government, then the people of the state benefit from that fiscal responsibility. We'll be talking about that. We have a lot of work to do yet in this state to move it forward. Even if we are in an enviable position, it's kind of like when you're in business. I ran a company for 25 years. You never stop having continuous improvement plans for your company. You can never quit moving forward, or you will ultimately move backward. And so we'll be talking more about education because that is the future of Tennessee. We'll be talking about infrastructure. We've made significant advances in transportation infrastructure and broadband infrastructure and water and sewer, but we've got to continue that. We're talking about nuclear energy and the future of our grid so that we can continue to have economic growth across our state. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about workforce and workforce development, because that's what, Tennesseans are workers. When you talk about workforce development and workforce protection, you're talking about Tennesseans who are workers. We will be also talking about the future of Tennessee and our kids' and grandkids' future as it relates to this spectacular beauty that is all around us every day. We started with a conservation agenda last year, and we are expanding on that significantly. We'll be talking about that in the State of the State. So there's a lot of exciting things yet to do. There's a lot of work to do. I am focused on the things that I think matter most to Tennesseans, and looking forward to the 5th.
Got about a minute left. We're joined by Governor Bill Lee, and here you are in basically the middle of your second term. Do you begin to start getting a little contemplative, a little bit thinking about where you are in this term?
Well, what I'm thinking about is I've only got 3 years left, and there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
So it's a good spot to be in. We have great work to do and great opportunities to make change in a positive direction. And you have to execute on the significant changes that have been put in place. You have to make certain that you are strengthening the foundations that have made this state the envy of many states, and that's what we'll be. And frankly, Steve, part of what I'm doing, I'm not thinking so much about what we're going to do the next year and the next year, but what do we need to do to secure our state's prosperity, freedom, security for people for the next 25 years. That's why we looked at the Transportation Modernization Act or restructuring the funding for public schools. Those are things that happen every 15, 20, 25, 30 years. I know that I'll only be here 3 years, but the things that we do in the next 3 years can impact life for Tennesseans in a positive way 20 and 25 years from now. And that's how I'm trying to look at our approach for the next few years.
Governor Bill Lee of the Volunteer State. Governor, I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much.
Always glad to be here, sir. Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Governor Bill Lee, everyone.